Okay, so I feel like doing a part two right now, so I'm just in one of these moods where I'm going off impulse. I didn't know it was going to come this quick, so here's part two on the Merkaba. Now, on part one, you heard me emphasize that the Merkaba was very murky, or that to understand the Merkaba, or the term Merkaba, you would have to understand the murky ethers, or the term murky, and what the term murky really means. Now, I like to interpret it because, you know, I got a lot of hip hoppers, and shout out to all my hood people out there, and my hood family, and have a lot of urban family and people on the street, so they can understand this very easily. Because on the street they got this term that says, like, you're gonna murk somebody, you know, you're gonna up that fifth on them or whatever, or up that burner on them, and use it and squeeze it, and you're gonna murk them. And it's like, where did that term really come from? Well, that term goes back to those particular ethers, and understand the Merkaba. There's a couple ways you could break it down, but I like to break it down a couple different ways. But the Merkaba, I'm going to break it down like that right now. And to understand that, you have to understand the term Merk. And the term Merk goes into it's a dark term, I guess, you know, on the street, you know, because it's talking about murdering someone, you know, taking someone's life prematurely. And the Merkaba, the reason why it's associated with that is because of the fact that, well, for one, the term murky means darkness, or the term murky kind of means like bloody or gory, you know, eerie type of thing. So, you know, like the term murky kind of goes into a darker term, you know, it's a darker energy associated with it, you know, because of course death is dark to us as humans because we know nothing of it. Like, the only thing we know about is this life. We don't know what's going to happen after this, you know. For the most part, some people do know, but I mean, there's very few, like 1% probably, or not even that, 0.1% maybe of the population knows. But for the most part, nobody really knows what's going to happen. So of course, when you're talking about murking somebody and murder and all that, that's very scary, you know. That could be very scary. So that's what it kind of goes into. But to understand murky, when in relationship to the Merkaba is not meant to really be scary, but it can get, when it's activated, it can definitely bring some things into your life, and bring some energies and entities into your life that are very dark, you know, like, because of the fact of what it's associated with. It's associated with the goddess. And when you look at the goddess, because I was telling you that the video before about the goddess, and when you research the goddess, she has a dark aspect to her that's dominant, and she also has a light aspect. The dark aspect is dominant, and it's not to say that she's a bad person or a bad creature or being or anything like that. It's not that. It's just that when I say darkness, it's a very misunderstood part of her nature, and that's how it is with the Merkaba. So if you're not careful and you activate it, you have to make sure, basically, when you activate it, that you don't see yourself going back into like a lower level or lower density life. Because if you go back into a lower level or a lower density life where the Merkaba is activated, what's going to happen is that or even after, like, say for instance, you get into spirituality, you activate your Merkaba, and then, you know, you stop, you turn it off or whatever, you just decide this is not for you anymore, you decide to go back into a lower density life, or whatever that was for you, whatever lower density is for you that was pulling you back down. But then you still got the knowledge of your Merkaba being activated. So when you go back into that life, it's going to be a lot darker the second time that you go back into that life. You know, the first time, it's one thing to be ignorant and you don't have knowledge of consciousness and knowledge of self, but once you get knowledge of self and then you decide to kind of like try to forget the stuff you know and try to be like the world, it's going to get a lot darker for you, especially if you got to the level of activating your Merkaba. To understand the Merkaba is to understand the 8th house in astrology, for those particular astrology fans out there. I hope all of you are astrology fans. I mean, watching this channel. I hope you're an astrology fan. But to all my astrology fans out there that are into the hardcore astrology, you know, the houses and the signs and the planets and all of that, well, the Merkaba goes into the 8th house to understand it. And the 8th house is the house of mysteries. It's the house of death, but it's the house of mysteries. So that's why the term Merk means mysterious. It's very mysterious to understand the Merkaba. Another thing that I want to say about it is that to really understand it, you have to be, as a male, to activate it, you really have to be in tune with the feminine aspect of yourself, meaning that the more allowing, I guess you could say, receiving, even if you want to call it passive aspect of yourself. And it's not to say you some chump or nothing like that. You got to be over your ego, you know, to be into this stuff. So it's not to say you know chump or whatever. That's ego level. We know you're not a chump. You know, we can go back into the school of ego and we realize that. You know, but to really understand that as a male, you know, you have to understand the law of allowing and the law of not just, you know, because as men we tend to want to make things happen and, you know, tend to want to force things to happen. And like, you know how it is when you first meet a female or whatever. That's, you know, when you was younger, of course, you know, as we get older, we get adulterated into the matrix. We become adults and we get adulterated. I want you guys that don't know to look that term up. But before you became adulterated, you know, you had your first girlfriend or whatever. Remember, you know, you maybe trying to make love to her, and you know, you wanted to sleep with her or be with her, whatever you want to call it. Like, you had to take it slow. You know, you had to take it slow for the most part, especially if she was a virgin, or maybe she didn't have a lot of partners or whatever. It wasn't just like you was just gonna smash it on the first time. You have to allow it to happen. Maybe you will smash for the first time or whatever. And I hate using that term smash, but that's just a slang term. Excuse me, ladies out there. I'm trying to really be more formal. But, you know, maybe you may make love to her on the first day or the first night. But that doesn't, you know, mean that you didn't have to be allowing and passive and kind of like allowing the situation to happen and allowing the situation to play out versus just throwing yourself on her. So that's kind of like when you understand a Merkaba, that's when you're in the meditation aspect, and if you get that deep into it and you begin to kind of like meditate on your chakras, because you got to meditate on different chakras to activate the Merkaba. So when you begin to meditate over your different chakras, if you don't feel certain chakras or you don't feel like centered, because when you meditate over certain chakras, what you're trying to do is center your consciousness within certain chakras. So say for instance, you're meditating on your heart chakra. You want to try to move into the heart, and to really understand activating the Merkaba is really to understand the heart chakra. Because it's murky and it's dark, yeah, but there's also the Merkaba, or the Father, you know, dealing with, or even the Ba, or the soul. And the soul, I believe the heart is the seat of the soul. So you have to be, of course, at peace with yourself and your heart with whatever you did in your past before you decide to activate it, which is very important. I don't care what you did. If you're not at peace with that, and only you know that, minus the drugs, whatever you're doing, if you're not at peace with that, once all that's gone, whatever you did in your heart, if you're not at peace with that, then it's going to be hard to activate the Merkaba. It just truly is. You know, you have to be at peace with whatever your decisions are in life. You have to live within the heart and be centered and be focused. So important to understand the Merkaba, and that's the soft aspect of it. So it's the hard aspect to it, of course, you know, activating it. It's going to get dark, because when you activate it, you're not just activating like, oh, it's a meditation, I'm going to activate my Merkaba, boop, okay, now I'm a superhero and I'm done. No, when you activate it, you are formally walking on an initiation and walking across a bridge from the darker aspects of reality, or the lower world, into the higher world, or the world of the unseen that we know nothing of here. So it's a lot of responsibility in that. You got to remember that. It's a lot of responsibility in that. So I just kind of wanted to point that out, you know, about the Merkaba. I'm not going to say too much more about it, but just make sure that you understand when you activate this, this is a pact, really for life. Keep it all the way 100 with you, because I mean, you got to think about some of the stuff like Ezekiel activated his Merkaba. Read about Ezekiel, the will of Ezekiel and all of that, Ezekiel's will in the Bible. Ezekiel activated his Merkaba. You know, so he was on a high level, like, you know what I'm saying? You read about some of the stuff he was doing and all of that, or read about just some of the book of Ezekiel in general. Most people don't even understand it. I probably have to do another video on that. I'm gonna have to revisit it and break down the book of Ezekiel to help you understand the Merkaba when I come back into the Merkaba information on a third level, because this is like my second time visiting this information with you guys. But when I do it again on a third level, I'm gonna talk about Ezekiel, because that's very important. Ezekiel's will, his vision that he had or whatever, because in order for you to have visions like that and experiences like that, and everybody wants to experience this mystical stuff and this metaphysical stuff, you have to definitely assure yourself and know to yourself that you in this for life, meaning that the only way out of this is death. Because when you activate your Merkaba, you are transforming yourself, you're making yourself into a vehicle, a spaceship actually. You're transforming yourself from a lower density level to a higher density level. So you may look the same to the people that know you, but if over time you're going to start changing, you're going to start looking different, because you're moving into another being or another body. You see, you're moving from one body to the next. when you activate Merkaba. So that's a deep lesson. I'm gonna go ahead and shut down because I got to get up out of here. But I thank you for listening and watching. And until we meet again, leave you in Hotep.